Hey guys, so this is going to be lesson 2, part 2, and we are going to begin. You can open your book from Savas or anywhere, like your actual physical book. I like the actual physical book because it helps me focus better. So let's begin. Sharing knowledge and new ideas. I'm on page 18, by the way. After research has been published, it enters the dynamic marketplace of scientific ideas. How do new data fit into existing scientific understanding? For example, the finding that growth of salt marshes is limited by available nitrogen sparks more questions. Is the growth of other plants in the same habitat also limited by nitrogen? What about the growth of different plants in similar environments, such as mangrove swamps shown in Figure 107? These logical and important questions lead to new hypotheses that must be independently supported or rejected by controlled experiments. Benefit and outcomes. Scientists, engineers, and scientific information interact constantly with our society, our economy, our laws, and our moral principles, as shown in Figure 108. Think of medical issues relevant to your life and lives of others close to you. That list may include effects of drugs, alcohol, high blood pressure, diabetes, AIDS, cancer, and heart disease. Science and engineering also play an important role in guiding decisions about health, social, and environmental issues. Should communities produce electricity using fossil fuels, nuclear power, solar power, wind power, or hydraulic dams? How should chemical waste be disposed of? Basically, again, I said this in the last video in the notes part, but I recommend writing down more moral and ethical principles affect scientific decisions and stuff like that. As a journalist, Dan Rather wrote in Scientific American blog, "In the end, science is all about hope. It's about expanding our horizons and endeavoring to understand more. It is an instinct so deeply human, an instinct we need now more than ever." Copyright Scientific American, a division of Nature America, Inc. Science, ethics, and morality. Useful answers to these questions require scientific information. But science alone is not often enough. In most cases, science and engineering can only tell us what technology is possible or what we could do. Science and engineering alone can almost never tell us whether we should or should not do something. Applying scientific information that involves understanding the role of science, context, in society, and its limitations. I recommend you write this down. Applying scientific information involves understanding the role of science, context, in society, and its limitations. Science by itself does not automatically include ethical or moral viewpoints. I recommend you write this stuff down. When scientists explain why something happens, their explanation involves in only natural phenomena. For example, biologists try to explain in scientific terms what life is, how life operates, and how life has changed over time. But science cannot ask questions about the meaning of life or why life exists. Avoiding bias. I recommend you write some stuff down. Scientists aim to be objective, but they have likes, dislikes, and biases. A bias, if you don't know what that means, is a personal rather than scientific point of view for or against something. Examples of biases include preferences for or against certain kinds of people or activities. Given this background, it is no surprise that scientific data can be interpreted in different ways by scientists with different personal perspectives. Recommendations from scientists with personal biases may or may not be in the public interest. But if enough of us understand science, we can help make certain that science is applied ways that benefit individuals and society. Basically, that is why peer review is important. If this stuff doesn't get peer reviewed, it can have biases in it that could distort people's view of science or distort people's view of others. So that's why peer review is really important. It helps people go, scientists go, there's a bias in here, you should change that, Science and engineering practices. Science and engineering is intertwined. I recommend you write that down. In contrast to scientists, engineers design and build machines and structures. Although this book focuses on the science of biology and many of the methods and practices, the things that scientists and engineers actually do are very similar. As a result, when you practice and master science skills, you're also learning skills that are useful in engineering. For additional information about these skills, see the Science of Engineering Handbook. And If you wonder how the testing idea as part of science compares to the kinds of things that engineers do, look at Figure 109. I recommend you look at Figure 109 on your Savas textbook or Savas online. Although some of the specifics vary, the steps in scientific inquiry and engineering design are basically the same. Not surprisingly, engineers are trained in basic science as well as the principles of the profession. So I'm going to list the stuff scientists do first and then engineering design do afterward. How it's related. Planned or chance observations and or personal or outside motivation generate a question. Colleagues and or clients present a need to be solved through engineering design. So I just read the first part. Basically, there's a chart here that explains stuff that scientists do and stuff that engineers do and how they're related. And I recommend you look at that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Okay, we have one more page to go. Developing and using models. Both scientists and engineers use models, such as those shown in Figure 1010. It's basically just like a model of DNA. When you hear the word model, you may think of model trains or other representations or of much larger objects, but there are many different kinds of models. Mathematical representations and computer simulations are examples. As two-dimensional drawings, diagrams, and maps, in fact, the flowcharts used throughout this lesson are models. Models help us visualize and summarize ideas and communicate ideas to each other. Basically what it's saying right now, to summarize what it said before and right now, models help us. Scientists should avoid bias, and they do peer review to avoid bias, and science and engineering are intertwined together. Using mathematical and computational thinking. Okay, I didn't pronounce that right, but hopefully you're reading with me as we go so you understand what that says. Computational. Okay, computational. I think it's had to do something with computers. Okay, yeah, it has something to do with computers. Lord. I'm teaching this lesson and I don't know what I'm teaching. I mean, I do know what I'm teaching, but like, low-key. Again, as I said in other videos, I'm only 14. Do your own research too. I'm only doing this because our teacher doesn't teach. I hate my life. Anyways, using mathematics and computational thinking. Mathematics and computational thinking. The process of mathematical calculation are also important tools. The relationships between variables are essential to the understanding of scientific phenomena. Ratios, rates, percentages, and unit conversations are used to analyze and interpret data. A mathematical representation can represent and model data. It can also support claims and explanations. Constructing explanations and designing solutions. Scientists aim to construct explanations for events in the natural world that cause them to ask questions. After scientists collect data and analyze and interpret the data, the end finds it supports the hypothesis. The next step is to construct an explanation, and an explanation describes how variables relate to one another. It's supported by evidence. In engineering, the goal is to design a solution to a problem with certain constraints. Basically, I recommend you write this part down. After scientists collect data, they analyze, interpret that data, and find that it supports the hypothesis. The next step is to construct an explanation. You don't have to write exactly that, just write a summarized version of that, please. Okay. Last paragraph. Engaging in argument from evidence. In science, an argument is a set of reasons used to persuade others that an idea is right or wrong. Once the scientist has constructed an explanation, the next step is to use evidence, analyzed and interpreted data, to persuade others that the explanation is correct. Part of this process is receiving critiques and responding thoughtfully. Engineers defend claims that design solutions is affect or evaluate competing design solutions. That's it for lesson 2. See you in lesson 3.